The midnight pizza order, a teacher's darkest secret. Everyone in town knew Mr. Solomon. He was the quiet but brilliant teacher at Redwood High School. His students loved him, and the parents trusted him. He had a calm presence, the kind that made you feel safe, like everything in his classroom was under control. But what no one knew was that Mr. Solomon had a secret, a scary, dark secret. And it all started with a pizza delivery. It was a cold Friday night when Alex, a teenage delivery boy, received an order for Mr. Solomon, Redwood High. That was strange. Who orders pizza to an empty school? But the tip was huge, so Alex grabbed his bike and rode into the darkness. The school was eerie and silent when he arrived. The classrooms stood empty, the corridors stretched into shadows. Yet when he knocked on the teacher's lounge door, it opened by itself. "Hello?" Alex called out. No answer. He placed the pizza box on the nearest desk. That's when he noticed something odd. A row of student desks covered in old, dusty test papers. The names on them sent a chill through him. They were students who had gone missing years ago. Suddenly, he heard a scratching noise coming from the hallway. Alex turned, his breath shaky. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, unnerving. The door slammed shut behind him. Meanwhile, Ms. Adebayo, another teacher at Redwood High, had always found Mr. Solomon strange. He never left school immediately after classes, and no one had ever seen him eat. That Friday night, she was working late when she heard what sounded like a distant voice coming from the teacher's lounge. It sounded like pleading. She tiptoed towards the door, placing her ear against it. "Please let me go. I swear I won't tell anyone." It was a boy's voice. Terrified, Ms. Adebayo's heart pounded. Was that Alex, the delivery boy? She turned the handle slowly, just enough to peek in. What she saw made her stomach churn. Mr. Solomon stood over Alex, his hands stained dark. His head tilted in a way that definitely wasn't human. His pupils shrunk, turning into what seemed like tiny black dots. And there, in front of him, was the pizza, but covered in something that definitely wasn't tomato sauce. Ms. Adebayo gasped. Too loud. Mr. Solomon's head snapped toward the door. With inhuman speed, Mr. Solomon lunged toward Ms. Adebayo. She barely managed to slam the door shut before his nails, yes, nails, like claws, raked against the wood. She ran down the hallway, past the darkened lockers. Behind her, the sound of bare feet slapping against the cold floor grew louder. She reached her classroom, locked the door, and fumbled for her phone. Hands shaking, she dialed the police. But before they could answer, she heard whispering from inside the room. She turned. The old classroom TV, one that hadn't worked in years, was flickering with static. Then an image formed. Children, sitting at desks, staring blankly ahead. They were the missing students. Their faces were frozen, their eyes hollow, and for whatever reason they were all chewing. Suddenly one turned to face the screen. His lips curled into a sinister grin. "Join us, Ms. Adebayo." The screen went black. Ms. Adebayo gasped for air. This couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare. Then she heard chewing. She turned toward the window. Outside, in the dim light of the street lamp, Mr. Solomon stood with his mouth full, and in his hand was another slice of pizza. But this time, it wasn't just food. It was moving, wriggling, squirming. Then she saw it. A tiny, human-like finger protruding from the crust. Ms. Adebayo screamed. At that moment, the police sirens blared outside. Mr. Solomon turned his head unnaturally again, eyes locking onto her. He grinned, his teeth sharpened into points. Then he vanished. The next day, the police searched every inch of the school. They found no trace of Alex, no evidence of Mr. Solomon's dark habits. But Ms. Adebayo knew the truth. Mr. Solomon was gone, but not for long. That night, as she sat in her apartment trying to convince herself it had all been a hallucination, her phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. She opened it. "Your pizza's on the way, Mr. Solomon." Her breath caught in her throat. Then, ding dong, the doorbell rang.